Several minutes of commercial-free football starts now. Here are the Purple Mortgage Guys.
Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Purple Mortgage Guys. For those that are just stumbling upon us, three guys in the home loan business and just love to talk Minnesota Vikings football. Started a show, so if you've not yet subscribed, go ahead and click on that. We'd love to have you. Leave some comments, some questions, and I'd love to address those on a future episode as well. So Goose, Tanner, I've got the Bears coming up this week. Laid a complete egg in a disaster against the Packers last week. Lots to talk about. Want to, I guess, start the show just acknowledging we haven't done a show since last week with Damar Hamlin. Sounds like things are turning around, and looks like he should be on a path, hopefully, to recovery. So just wanted to acknowledge that super scary situation. Kind of a fluke thing that happened, and just want to make sure to continue to keep Damar in thoughts and prayers as well as he makes a recovery. So wanted to hit on that. But talking Vikings again this week, guys. Got the Bears coming up, Soldier Field. Never really know how that's going to go. Game feels meaningless. There's no way that I don't think any of us can predict that the Niners are going to lose to the Cardinals, which would open up the 2 seed again. That ship feels like it sailed last week in Lambeau. So guys, going into this game, 8-point favorites at Soldier Field. Justin Fields is out. Nathan Peterman might be the worst quarterback in the NFL on a roster. Goose, I want to start with you this week. Is our defense going to hold Nathan Peterman, or are we going to make him look like a reputable QB and have a career day? And does it even matter? What are your thoughts going into Chicago this weekend?
Yeah, I think it does matter. I think this game, we might not be able to change seeding or really anything there, but I'm a big believer in momentum. And I think that both offensively and defensively, this is an important game to get back on track and get confidence up. And there's really no better team to play right now, especially without Justin Fields, to have a confidence booster. So I think Peterman might get some yards, but I think he's going to have a tough game. And I really have the mindset of this game that I don't care who plays for Minnesota. I'd prefer the starters, but my expectations don't change much. Like if we have our whole second string in there, I want to still look dominant. I think Fields is the only thing keeping this team competitive. So without him, I just want to dominate the game. I don't care if Ryan Wright is at quarterback for us. I want to beat them by double digits.
Let's see Ryan Wright running a little triple option, or maybe the Blazing package from the Joe Webb days. You guys remember that? Tanner, what do you want the starters to play? We obviously know injuries can happen. Look back to last week with Brian O'Neill now out for the year. Do you want to risk the starters playing and just assume we can turn it on again in a couple of weeks against the Giants, or I guess next weekend? Or do you want to get everybody clicking again and a little bit of a momentum high going into the playoffs?
Yeah, I mentioned it on our last show on Monday or Tuesday when we recorded that we need to go into the playoffs firing on some sort of hot cylinder. So I want to see the starters play. I think the offense needs to get collective and get their crap back together. This Bears team is probably the worst team in the league. They are absolutely decimated with injuries. If you go and look at their roster, I think they have like more than 10 players on injured reserve that saw the field pretty significantly this season. So you already mentioned Justin Fields is out for this game. He is their entire offense, and even with him on the team, they're already still one of the worst offenses in the league. So Nathan Peterman, Sean Mannion, if you're going to make me pick which QB is probably the worst in the league, gun to my head, I choose death. Nathan Peterman is horrible. He is horrible.
Didn't he play for the Bills a few years back and had like 5 interceptions? And
his first career game, he came in, saw the field. He had 5 picks, and I think they were all in the first half.
I think you're right. It was a disaster.
I can't believe he's still on an NFL roster. Like he's complete garbage. So I got fun tidbit coming up with him here soon that I'll share. But there is no reason, I guess, the Vikings shouldn't beat the balls off this Bears team. They're just not good. Their defense is actually quite poor as well. I think they're last in the league in pass rush efficiency. They're not getting to the QB this year. So this is a pretty good game for a guy like Oli Udoh. And even Chris Reed probably getting a start this week at center to get their feet wet against the defensive line that doesn't do a very good job of getting pressure. And they also are last in the league in yards allowed per game on the ground as well. So might even see a heavy dose of Dalvin Cook this week as well. So let's beat the Bears, get to the playoffs.
I don't know if it's a fairly meaningless game for us as far as seeding and everything, but for Chicago, they have 3 wins. Houston has 2. I don't know who has the tiebreaker if they would end up with the same record. Then Arizona and Denver have 4 wins. I think there's a lot of motivation for the Bears not to win this game. So I don't think there's if we we'll get to the end of the show here and talk about if things go wrong, what we'll be complaining about on Monday. But if we lose this game,
we'll have a lot to complain about.
Might as well just close down the old show and call it a year, huh? So
the Bears are playing for the number 1 pick. They've held it in. So I think if they lose, I read that they will be the number 1 overall pick. If Houston wins their game against
playing Indianapolis. So that nobody wants to win that game.
So
all right. Well, let's see. Let's get into some Tanner's tidbits, whether it's this game or league-wide or playoff predictions. Tanner, I think you've got some good tidbits for us again this week. What do you got?
Yeah. Okay, Vikings are 64, 57, and 2 all-time against the Bears, including 25, 33, and 2 in Chicago at Soldier Field. They have won their last 3 games against the Bears, but they have not won 4 in a row against the Bears since 1997 and 1998. So looking for that 4th win. Weather conditions for Sunday in Chicago, partly cloudy with a calm wind under 10 miles per hour and a high of 35 degrees. So another warm January game, I would say, for Chicago. 2 weeks in a row, which is nice. Kirk Cousins is 6-4 in his career against the Bears. He is 4-2 at Soldier Field. In those starts, he's thrown for 239 yards a game, 15 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and a 96.1 QB rating. So nothing spectacular. Nathan Peterman.
Subject.
I'm honestly baffled. He's on an NFL roster. He's horrible. This will be his 5th career start. I'm not sure how long he's been in the league. I would say it's probably been about 4 or 5 years. He has a career record of 1-3. He is 1-1 in home games, so he does have a win. But in those starts, he is averaging in those 4 games, 83 yards per game passing, less than 100 yards. He's thrown 1 touchdown pass, 10 interceptions, and a 41 QB rating.
Solid.
Complete garbage.
Are those starts?
His starts.
Because they're even worse when you count the times he's been subbed into the game.
If you just pull up his game logs from his career, I just can't believe it. I just can't believe he's on a roster. If we get torched by this guy, I'm not going to the playoff game, Brent.
If we get torched,
I will have no faith. I'm not going.
Yeah.
I think the Bears have him on the roster for one reason, and that is to tank and ensure a draft pick.
Get us the number 1 pick, Nathan. I'll do it. Kirk Cousins, 4th in the league in passing yards, 5th in touchdown passes, and after last week's 3 interception outing, he is now tied for the league lead in interceptions with 14. Derek Carr and Dak Prescott are his counterparts on that piece. Dalvin Cook looking for 6,000 career rushing yards this week to end the season. He is 44 yards away from that. Justin Jefferson, despite having a pretty poor outing against the Packers, is still 1st in the league in catches by a pretty wide margin, 1st in targets, first in receiving yards. It's pretty unlikely he's going to break Calvin Johnson's record. Unfortunately, he would need 194 yards this week to get that NFL record. He did drop one slot as well on Pro Football Focus. He is now the third highest graded receiver. Tyreek Hill and Amon-Ra St. Brown is now number 2 by 0.1, by the way.
Really goes to show you the season that Kelvin had. Like it felt like JJ was on like an unprecedented level. He's got an extra game this year. He's stayed healthy, even with subbing out a few times, and to still be nearly 200 yards away from a record that was set in a 16-game season is just unbelievable.
Yeah, Calvin was special. My favorite player, Adam Thielen, got some nasty stats for him this week. I'm kind of stealing some of these from Purple Daily, so there's your credit. Adam Thielen has had his best season was 2018. That was the best season of his career. He had 9 100-yard receiving games in that season. Can you guys guess how many he's had since then in the last 4 years? Total?
3.
6.
You guys can meet in the middle. 5.
5
100-yard receiving games since then in the last 4 years. His last 100-yard game was in week 6 of last season, 2021, in an overtime win at Carolina against the Panthers. Also read he has a contested catch rate of 21% this year. His career contested catch rate is 48%. So essentially every time Kirk has been throwing him the ball, he's coming down with it half the time when it's a contested ball. This season, he's had 19 contested catches. He's only caught 4 of them.
Yeah, he used to come down with those all the time.
Only caught 4, and 3 of those targets were interceptions.
So when you ask why Kirk doesn't throw a 50-50 ball, it's because it's not a 50-50 ball?
Not this year, it's not.
Oof.
He has a $19 million cap hit going into 2023, so this is going to be a topic for another day, but it feels like we are maybe potentially on our last few games here with Adam Thielen, which really sucks. But they're going to have to, if they trade or cut him at some point, they're going to end up eating a lot of money. I think the only way to really get out of that at this point is to extend his contract even longer. Lower that cap hit again, and then hope that he retires here, I think, within the next 2 or 3 years. So we're playing the Chicago Vikings this week. Lots of former faces on the Bears team. Riley Reif is going to be playing, or he's getting the start at right tackle this week since they're decimated with injuries. Kari Blossengame, not sure if you guys remember him. He's the starting fullback for the Bears. Jalen Holmes, Armin Watts, Elijah Lee, and Harrison Hand is getting the start at corner this week since they're so decimated with injuries at that spot as well.
Wow.
So, another
I was
former
a fan
face.
of Harrison Hand. I was a little bummed out when we cut him.
I was as well. I like Harrison Hand. Solid player. So Dakota Dozier and Trevor Siemian also spent a small stint with the Vikings. They are on injured reserve, so they won't be playing, but just a lot of familiar faces on that Bears team that spent a good amount of time with the Vikings. We have a couple on our team as well. We signed midway through the year here, Kairos Tonga and Duke Shelley are former Chicago players that actually started the season with the Bears, but are now with us on our active roster. So that'll be a homecoming game for them. Bears right guard Tevin Jenkins. He's not going to be playing. He got hurt last week. He's on injured reserve, but quiet surprise for them this season. He is actually the 3rd highest graded guard in the league this season. Only Chris Lindstrom of the Falcons and Joel Bitonio of the Browns have higher grades than him.
Oh, did they have him at tackle last year?
Yeah, he played right tackle. Actually, I think he played both. I think he played both tackle spots a little bit his rookie season. So here's where we get into the ugly Bears stats. The Bears have the lowest graded receiving core in the league. It's not really that surprising. They don't really have any crazy, extremely exciting faces, I guess. Chase Claypool, I guess you could say. The Bears offensive line on the opposite end of the spectrum, though, has the 4th highest graded run blocking grade this season. So the Bears do lead the league in rushing, and they have had a lot of success on the ground. But I think a lot of that is due diligence to Justin Fields, who's obviously not going to be playing this week. So the Bears have the lowest graded defense in the league, per Pro Football Focus. Lowest graded run defense in the league. I think I already hit on that. And the lowest graded pass rush in the league. So they are at the very bottom of the league in multiple categories. Like, this is just not a good football team. The Vikings are the 4th highest graded overall team. The Bears are 31st. Only the Texans are lower. Fun Kirk stat, despite having 2 of the top 5 graded tackles in the league this season in Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, Kirk Cousins has been sacked a career high 46 times this season. So that's a career high for him.
It's amazing he's still healthy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Iron Man. And I guess I'm not sure if this is really a tidbit, but if anybody wants to follow along on this piece real quick, I kind of just wanted to go through some playoff scenarios for the Vikings. If the Vikings play the Giants in the first round in the wild card round, which is, I feel like, probably our most likely scenario, they have to lose against the Bears this week, or San Francisco has to beat Arizona. So one of those, I feel like, is obviously pretty likely. In order to play the Packers in the first round, San Francisco must lose to the Cardinals, and the Vikings have to beat the Bears, and the Packers have to beat the Lions on Sunday night.
A Lions team that will have nothing to play for thanks to the NFL scheduling. So
Yeah, not cool.
just throw that little tidbit in there. That's a bonus tidbit.
So the last 2 scenarios, the Seahawks, in order for the Vikings to play the Seahawks in the first round, San Francisco must also lose to the Cardinals. The Vikings will have to beat the Bears. The Lions would have to beat the Packers, which Seattle plays before Detroit, which is crap. And Seattle would have to beat the Rams, which is pretty likely as well, I would think. And in order to play the Lions in the first round, San Francisco must also lose to the Cardinals. Vikings have to beat the Bears. Detroit would have to beat Green Bay on Sunday night, and Seattle would have to lose to the Rams. So I realize that's probably pretty tough to follow along. I do have a graphic I wish we could share, but those are the scenarios for our first round divisional.
So we'll be playing the Giants. The Packers will be playing the 49ers.
It feels like that's probably the likely scenario.
Gotcha. Are those our Tanner tidbits?
That's my last regular season tidbit.
All right. We'll be looking for these wild card tidbits next week from you, Tanner. Guys, it feels to me like when we get into bold predictions here, we almost need 2 sets of predictions. We need a halftime score and we need an end of the game score, because it might feel like 2 separate games, and you can do that if you want. I think ideally for me, we look good. Offensive line doesn't look inept. Maybe 1 or fewer false start holding type penalties in the first half, and get a big lead, and then we can play it like a preseason game in the second half. So let's get into bold predictions. Goose, I'm going to start with you again this week. Give me something that's going to happen on Sunday in Chicago for the Vikings.
Yeah. I think where I'm getting drawn to with this game, there's a lot of unknowns with playing time and how they're going to come out and look. But I keep kind of getting pulled towards Brian Asamoah leading the team in tackles on Sunday. I think, one, he's already going to get kind of mixed in. I think we're going to jump out to an early lead. I think he's going to start to play every down. And he's a young, athletic guy who I think is going to be all over the field on Sunday.
Okay. Tanner, what do you have for us this week?
My bold prediction is that Nick Mullins, the backup quarterback for the Vikings, is going to have more points for the Vikings this week than Kirk Cousins.
Just for the record, he doesn't get credit if there's a field goal or a safety, right? It's not when he's in the game. It's he's throwing the touchdown.
Or rushing.
Okay. Or rushing. I'm going to say Nathan Peterman will complete a pass to Duke Shelley for one of his interceptions.
Yeah.
So we'll go with the Duke Shelley pick. And I hope Duke sits in the second half along with most of the starters. All right, give me your scores. You can go halftime or end of game or both. You make the call, Goose. This is a unique version of both predictions.
It really is. I'm going to say at halftime, we're up 24-3.
Wow.
And that's what I want to see. And if I don't see it, I'm going to be irritated. I feel like the Bears without Justin Fields is one of the worst football teams I've ever seen assembled in my life. They're in a great spot with cap and a great spot with picks, but their current roster is between injuries and trading away some of their talent is decimated. And as a 12-win, hoping to go to 13-win team right before the playoffs when you need to hit your stride, I think we have to bury them. So, final score, I think we throttle it down a little bit, work on the run game, try to get out healthy, and game ends at 38.
God, 38 points in Chicago on January?
Yes.
We're going to be we must be wearing those 7 studded cleats then the whole game.
Mm-hmm. They learned their lesson. 38-2. Defense plays a little prevent. 38. Gosh, 10. No, 38-17.
All right. Tanner?
That should have been your bold prediction, Goose. Put up almost a 40 burger. I'm going to say the Vikings hold a pretty comfortable lead, I think, majority of the game. And I'm going to say in the second half, if the starters aren't pulled, we're on solid rotation. So players like Patrick Jones are coming in, Troy Dye, maybe in the linebacking core, Chris Boyd in the secondary, stuff like that. So I'll say we'll get out to a pretty comfortable lead. Even at halftime, and I'll say the Bears will come back and put up some garbage points just to pull in with a pretty even score. I'll go 23-13 Vikings.
Okay. Guys, this feels like one of those only the Vikings could do it type of games where we'll finally blow out a team maybe by more than 2 scores, but it'll probably be because there's backup quarterbacks going at it and you're cheering for laundry, not really the players, because you don't recognize half the names. So I'm going to go with you, Goose. It's a little bit more of wishful thinking, but in an ideal world, we have a big lead at half. Nobody gets hurt and we look reputable again. Had a lot of negativity over the last week here to deal with. So we got to flush that out of the system before we go to the playoffs. I'm going to say we're up 20-6 at half, and we win the game 30-17. No, we got to go 3 scores, so I'll go 30-13. Nick Mullins will look. It'll be one of those things where, because the fans don't realize that Nick Mullins was playing against backups like they look at in the preseason, they're going to think Nick Mullins is the answer because Kirk Cousins obviously can't get it done, and that's not going to be at all true. But it feels like one of those games that if you want to go to it, I just looked on Ticketmaster, $26 will get you in the door. So you can see what kind of buzz there is for this game.
To be honest, I'm surprised we didn't hear more of that with the Packers game. Just knowing our fans, like Nick Mullins came in 4 for 4, touchdown.
Jalen Naylor is the next big thing.
Yeah,
he might be though.
Yeah, I like our rotational guys just way more than them. That's why I still like sometimes our best ball, because Tanner, you called it out last week. Like sometimes you see the effort with Daniil, or some of our starters. I think the starters that will probably continue to play, like the KJ Osbornes of the world, and some of our rotational guys, just their effort alone. Like sometimes I think we look better when our rotational guys are in there. So that's my thought process around the high score.
You know, I wouldn't even mind seeing Delvin not play and have Alexander Madison, and I think we could work in Ty Chandler now too, couldn't we? On the active roster.
Yeah.
I would love to see him get some action just to see if that might be an answer next year or long term.
And Kane, I'd still love to see Kane play running back with his explosiveness. Like I think 1000% you could sit Delvin and work those three in pretty significantly.
Well, we'll see. What about we always like to do things go south. What are we going to be complaining about? I don't even know that we necessarily have to lose to have some complaints going into the playoffs, guys. But what do we see there? Tanner, I'm going to start with you on this one. Give me a name, one person, one first name, one last name, coach, player, whomever.
Kevin O'Connell. So to go into probably one of our biggest games of the year against our division rival and get your butt kicked against the Packers team. It was your worst outing as a head coach of the Vikings, and you didn't have your team ready. And if you do that again this week against another divisional foe who's arguably the worst team in the league, you're going to look like a meal to a team like the Giants going into the playoffs. So he needs to have his players ready to go. We need to be able to thump somebody once, beat them by 10 plus points for once, and just look like you can compete with anybody in the league.
I think that's very fair. Goose, one first name, one last name.
Yeah. KOC is probably where I was headed to. I think it's hard to go any other direction just because I think there's going to be such a small dose of an individual player playing the entire game that I almost think this week has to be a coach. I don't think this is going to happen, but I'll go on the other side of the ball then and say Ed Donatel.
Atta boy.
Against
you will complain. You'll hold out all season, but then if Nathan Peterman's like the last straw for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Someone insert the Kirk Cousins gif.
I will rip the TV off of the wall if we look bad. Like you said, it doesn't have to be a loss. If we look bad and don't dominate this game, there's absolutely no excuses. I'm sure there will be a player on the defensive side that I'd be frustrated with, maybe more than the play call. But since I have no idea who's going to play and for how much, I'll go Ed Donatel.
I cannot believe that you will throw the Vikings defense under the bus after holding on. You wouldn't even be mad at the players. You would just be mad at the coordinators. So I get it. I'm going to go with, I was going to say Nathan Peterman just to throw it out there and then roundabout way to say Donatel, because if you make him look good, like you said, Goose, you have problems. I'm going to say Chris Reed because, man, you guys remember last Sunday how many times?
No, I don't want to, Brent.
The play.
Don't bring it up.
False start, Ezra Cleveland. It's like now the ball's still there. He didn't snap it. So
Yeah.
I think our offensive line, guys, it's so easy to overlook. But if that is in shambles going into the playoffs, it could be a long Saturday, Sunday, or Monday against the Giants in the wild card round. So
Yeah.
I don't disagree with either of you guys either. I think those three things are probably all important, but we have to have some sort of competency. Hopefully Bradbury's back, but
Yeah. And if you compare D lines of the Bears and the proposed opponent that we're likely to face with the Giants, it's not even close on skill level. I do think you get a little bit of a pass for practicing at guard all season, but like, I think that's a really good call, Brent, because he's got a whole week to figure it out. And he's a veteran. So even if he hasn't taken a lot of snaps at center, he's been in the locker room. He's been in the team room with the O-line. And if you get a whole week to prep for this, then you're struggling.
all right, guys, any closing thoughts? I feel like there's a lot of negativity around everything Vikings related. We're probably a little down this week, as you can tell from the demeanor of the three of us, but we have reason to be optimistic going into the playoffs. Got those 12 wins under the belt. So any closing thoughts on the game for Sunday?
Just go thump a poor opponent. Go beat somebody that's clearly inferior to you by more than 10 points.
Come out hot, don't get hurt.
Going to the playoffs on a hot note.
Yep. I think we all agree on that. So guys, that wraps us up for another episode. Again, if you guys are if you're out there listening for the first time, hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you follow our page, and we'll come back again Monday, recap, and look forward to Wild Card Weekend in the playoffs. Have a great weekend, everybody.